This is some of the box work. This is the original test out of the curved corner 3D work and the inside, just to see how that would be done. And then the next iteration was having a better inside. At one stage I was going to actually make this the box. Those are the location pinholes you can see around the outside. But then I decided that this was black butt, and I decided it'd be even better if I did it in walnut. So this is the start of the box design, and obviously those pins will be flipped over. Eventually it'll be sort of that shape and that shape, top and bottom, bottom and top, and then the pins will flip over, and then on that side you'll get this sort of thing happening, and then finally they'll be cut out into two hexagons from one side or the other, and then we should have the box. So I'm reasonably happy with this. The detail on the soldier is quite good, and the detail on this, not surprisingly, is very good. So crack on with the box. This is a simulation from the software of how the machine will be cutting the timber. This is not the actual sequence of cutting. As you already know, the inlays were done first, because that's the thing most likely to go wrong. And so I didn't want to do all of this pocketing that you can see here on the inside, and then find that it has to be thrown away because the inlays don't work on the other side. So this isn't necessarily the sequence, but it is all of the tool paths that are taken in 3D. The tool that's working at the moment is a 3.175mm diameter, 1/8 of an inch diameter, flat-ended bit to take out the bulk of the areas. And this now is a 1mm bit to do all the bits and pieces where the 3mm bit can get in, and also to square up corners, because the internal corners would be curved with a radius of 3.175/2. So the 1mm bit makes the corners a lot sharper. This is the other side. The blue lines you can see are the actual paths that the tool center line will take as it moves through the wood cutting. And then, having displayed that, it then shows the tool working. You can see here the tabs. This is 3D, so these are the tool paths. The V bit will take. It's just thinking at the moment about for the V carve, which is already done. And the edges, around the edges here, these curved edges were done with a ball nose bit. So there are 4 bits: a V bit, a ball nose bit, the 1mm diameter flat end, and the 1/8 of an inch diameter flat end used for these various tool paths. This is the V bit now, carving, and it's put in the location pinholes. They were the very first thing to go in, of course, in order to be able to locate the material. The tabs here will be cut out. They're just to hold the center in place. And you can see here that the actual inlay will actually be seen on the inside, most probably, which is I'm not particularly pleased about, because it'll be a bit of a weak point on the outside, I guess. However, this was the only thickness of timber I had in the sort of walnut that I wanted to do it in, so such is life. That's it. The bullnose bit has rounded the edge, as you can see, and now the flat-ended bit is going to cut these out completely, bar a couple of tabs. Unfortunately, I can see, if you look carefully at the bottom there, you can just see those 2 black hinges which are going to show. God knows why. It should be at least a millimetre of, well, it should be 1mm of wood there between the edge, so I don't know what's happened, but anyway, I'll have to deal with it. So very not happy about the hinges sticking out the back. The reason is you can see that rectangle should be right close to the edge, and it's not. The whole thing is shifted up in this direction by 2.22 millimeters on the bed. I'm kicking myself because I had a 0.0 hole between them that I could have checked for that sort of gross error, and I would have realised that it was there was something badly wrong, but I couldn't tell when it was engraving, when it was cutting this out. So it is what it is. So now I've got back on the software, and the piecing green should be an exact fit to go around and get added to the back here. I'll try and cut out two of these. The rectangles, these two rectangles, just because this is going to be like 2 millimeters thick or something and 10 millimeters deep, and it's just going to be unstable cutting it. So these to try and stiffen it up, and I'll just sand those off afterwards, and we'll see, depending on the wood grain, whether this is cuttable or not. I'll do it in really small increments and see if we can cut it out of the walnut block that's left. So this is a piece of machined, and it indeed does fit perfectly on there, but because I've taken the circular grooves all the way down, it shows at the surface. So back to the drawing board, but basically that'll fit on like that, and then I'll shape it and take off the back tabs and everything. It's cut out really nice and it's really accurate, so I'm pleased with that. Back on the V-carving of the male plugs for both the soldier on the left and the Ukrainian symbol on the right. I'm doing it really slowly so that I don't tear the jelly-tongue wood, and so it's taken that 2 hours to do this bit, but that's fine, I do other jobs. And then we'll do the V-carve of the black walnut. I'm always surprised after carving the male plugs, they look so sketchy, and the detail looks like you've got no chance of it working. But I'll clean it up by hand, and fortunately the critical surface is not the one that you see at the surface. The critical surface is like 2/3 down, so it kind of generally works, but it's always a heart-stopping moment when I take back the timber and reveal how it's inlaid. Okay, here we go. X marks the spot. Let's do some V-carving. Yeah, it feels like it's gone a lot better this time. Just putting out the profiles now, but the hinges aren't poking through, so yeah, I'm glad I took the extra day or so to redo these. Yeah, it would have hurt my eye every time I saw the last set. So yeah, all good. So the box is done, which is good. Probably need to work a little bit on the edges. I don't know if you can see it, but they don't line up perfectly. There's probably, perhaps maximum of 0.5 of a millimeters out. So what I've done is I've got the CNC to machine up some dowels that fit in the hinge locations and a peg that fits in the magnet location. The idea of these is that these can be pulled out much more easily than the hinges can, and I won't wear the holes, so I can put these together, and I can now machine this all flush, so that when I put the hinges and the magnets in, it will hopefully open flush all the way around. So we'll see how we go. Just finishing the machining of the the pin that holds the flint wheel in the bullet block. This is the flint ring retaining screw, and this slitter blade is cutting the slot head into the end of it. The depth to 1mm, as shown on the screen. So this is the box. Needs some more varnishing, and yeah, it's not ideal. I wanted that to be in the top, but it's not anyway. Kind of what it looks like. Just making sure everything fits up okay, and it does look good, and the joints are good and the hinges work, so I'm pretty pleased with that. Just need to do some more work on it. The process of setting in these magnets to these magnet recesses, now that I've thought it through, is more difficult than I first thought. The magnet has to go in the recess central, just for aesthetic purposes. And when the box closes, the two magnets have to be well aligned. My initial thought was that I would just put epoxy glue in both of the recesses and put the magnets together and close the box. But then I've got problems with possibly the glue coming out of the hole, because I want enough glue to fill the hole completely, coming out of the hole and sticking the box together, which is a kind of reminiscent of the problems I had on the box for the OTF knife, where I managed to epoxy up the hinges. So what I've come up with is, first of all, I've used some tape on the sides of the magnet there as spacers, in order to get it central in the hole. I've also got a piece of copper which is non-magnetic, and I'll put epoxy in the hole. You can see on the top here I've also put some mold release wax, so that if the glue does get out of control, hopefully it won't stick to the timber in the worst case. It might be hard for me to remove excess glue, because if I use solvents it might take off the varnish, which would be another problem. Anyway, if I push the magnet down into the hole, I can then, it will be then flush, because it's stuck against the copper. It will then be flush with the top of the box. I can then use the copper to hold it flush against the top whilst removing the nut. I can then have a look to see if there's any excess glue and try and sort that out, and then I can replace the copper and replace the nut, which should again pull, if it has sunk down into the hole a bit, will pull the magnet back up flush with the box. Once this magnet is adhered in place, I can fix the other magnet to it, and I can kind of repeat the process with the top half, maybe. Not sure exactly how I'll do that at the moment, because as soon as I put it in and close the box, if excess glue comes out, then it'll stick the box together. Perhaps what I'll do is do exactly the same process on the other side, and because the pockets should be well aligned, hopefully the magnets will be well aligned too. We see how it goes. Well, that seems to have worked. I decided to do both at the same time. There's a little gap there which I'll have to try and fill somehow, I guess. But it's worked reasonably well, and The magnets are in place, and hopefully I've got the two magnets here and here the right way around so that they attract and don't repel, but I think that's good. That's a satisfying click. Likey. Ruth's just pointed out that I haven't actually included Lloyd's initials or the date, which I normally do on these things. Thanks, babe. So I've given myself one last chance to stuff it all up, and I'm going to try and just V-carve them in parallel to this side. And so I've just set up this gauge on my machine and just run it along the edge to make sure the edge is parallel with the travel of the machine, and then I will try and put this in. I'm just remembering to machine this last pin, just about to pad it off or cut it off. It's 5mm long, and it's this pin here. I seem to recall that there's a smaller hole right in the top just to take the flint and keep it tight against the wheel. I think the spring might be a larger diameter. In any case, either way, the brass pin's a good idea, because the brass pin's the same length as the flint, so when the flint runs out, the brass pin will just rub against the wheel and the wheel won't be damaged. If there's a restriction here, the brass pin will only just reach the wheel because it's the same length as the flint. So in either case, I think it's probably a good thing to have in. I just hope it doesn't jam now when I put it in at the last moment. And it'll save the pin from coming up and being ground away against the wheel when the flint runs out. So we'll try and put that in, and hopefully it doesn't jam and everything's good. It's just tapered just at the top, just to make sure it doesn't catch on this ledge, to get it into the flint hole. Just the same.